Hey, so here's what happened. I did a bunch of tuning and I was getting really close, and the thing is flying really well, but it was not behaving well with position hold, and my orientation, my magnetometer, something was really wrong, um, and as a result, in one of my last flights before before modifications. It took off like a rocket, and that was a magnetometer problem. And when it came down hard into one of my trees, it was very high up in the tree. It was embarrassingly hard to get to. The neighborhood knew I was like too old to be going that high up into a tree to get my toy. Nevertheless, I did recover it, and the only damage was my GPS unit was completely gone. So, um, so that helped me actually, because now what I've done is removed the GPS switches. I've turned all GPS features off and just left LiDAR in place. And with that, I am able to do the testing now with just position hold low down with LiDAR and see what's going on. And that's working. It's not, like I said, again, like what happened in the beginning. It's not awesome, but it is working. It's doing pretty much what it's supposed to do. It could be also the environment I'm doing it over. It keeps hovering over the grass, and then by that point it can't tell. It has no pattern to draw from, so it's stabbing as in terms of making up defined groundwork for it to reference to. Anyway, it's flying much better, and I was about to trash the whole setup and start from scratch again. And I just did a little more research, and it turns out the filtering needed to be adjusted dramatically, and I wasn't doing it the right direction. For a drone this large, the D term needed to be much lower, and I will show you all of those pages of the changes, and it's flying really smoothly now. And from this point, we can now add the GPS back into it. I have another one. I will order yet another backup. It's not unusual. Like I said before, these things get easily damaged. I'm glad that it was actually only the GPS unit and nothing else on the drone. Although the propellers on this drone are pricey, and they're about the same price as the GPS unit. So it could have been one or the other. It wasn't both, and that's great. This is a PID retuning, complete reset. And I think the only changes that I made to it this time were the control derivative numbers. I left everything else the same, just to see if we could get back to finding where the problem is. Alright, and in rates and expos, I made these changes. Take note of them. Several of them changed. So make a screenshot of that or just write those down. Alright, in filters, the most important things that we changed are going to be the unicorn at 250, the matrix at 80, the minimum frequency, and D-term LPF cutoff at 80. And I discovered that that is necessary for a much larger drone. Now, as a side note, I just wanted to show you when your calibration is actually complete on OpticFlow. You'll get this multi-digit number between 9 and 10, and in that respect, you'll know that the calibration has been a success. There's also a save on that page. I would recommend saving after you've done the calibration, just to ensure that that is remembered by your flight controller. And will it work? Well, we see it show up on the telemetry, and after those two things are confirmed, we're at the mercy of INAV to know what to do with it, since it doesn't have a switch other than position hold to engage it. Another feature that I wanted to point out before we head out to do a flight test is motor music, which I'm doing in a different series. Here's an example of this aircraft. I will finish this one with harmonies, but in my series you'll learn how to do this for now on 32-bit ESCs. It is possible to do it on the 8 bits, but we're going to have to learn a little bit of different language to do that and script it. So, in order to keep the GPS far enough away from the electronics to work correctly, it's supposed to be on a stand like this. But can you imagine me using this stand? That's just asking for disaster. I've got to get the aircraft working correctly before I try to get the GPS that high up on a stick. So, as you can see, it's flying pretty nicely. I'm bummed that the audio was not on. I kept turning it on the camera and it turns off by itself. I don't know why. Very frustrating, and I forgot to turn it on. I wanted you to hear the motors. I wanted you to hear the lack of stutter, but it's performing far better. With just LiDAR turned on, I don't know if it's actually doing anything. It's definitely performing well, but am I holding it in place? Am I holding the level? I don't know I can't tell. I need to engage surface, which I was not adding as a switch. Primarily because it doesn't show up in modes. And it occurred to me while I was out of GPS that GPS modes were not activated and they weren't visible. So maybe instead of rangefinder, it should be set to LiDAR, although I wasn't getting telemetry with that. So now I'm very confused. The magnetometer may be bad, it may have been too close to the power, it may be that it's oriented in the wrong direction, which I wasn't able to determine in the goggles. So that can cause the swirling or toilet bowling, or as I called it, widening gyre. All of this seems to be fixable problems, and we will solve it all. But first, we need to find out if surface mode is going to get us up to speed.